Today is the 7th day of this February 1985 7-day retreat. We will read from the writings of Wang Po as translated by John Blofeld. Wish to mention that words, sentences, or half sentences and paragraphs have been deleted. We're seen necessary so that it fits in the context in which we're working. One has heard Wang Po's words many times, so again here it is important that the mind not be lulled into a listening or recognition track. But listen with attention. With the inner ear and eye. Beyond the words. Wang Po lived in the 9th century on a mountain which was named Wang Po, and he was a Zen teacher in the tradition, in the Buddhist tradition. Sometimes the word Buddha has been translated by me as truth. The word Dharma is a Sanskrit word for many things. Teaching, the order of the universe, or the truth of the universe. So sometimes the English words have been substituted. The master said to me, or the recording took place by one of his disciples who was also a scholar, a Buddhist scholar and a high government official. He recorded Wang Po's sermons and, let's say talks, he calls them sermons here, his talks and the dialogues that he had with Wang Po. The master said to me, all the Buddhas and all sentient beings are nothing but the one mind, beside which nothing exists. This mind, which is without beginning, is unborn and indestructible. Unborn. Here the footnote says unborn, not in the sense of eternity, for this allows contrast with its opposite, but unborn in the sense that it belongs to no categories admitting of opposites. Unborn can also mean unconditioned and unconditionable. It is not green nor yellow, and it has neither form nor appearance. It does not belong to the categories of things which exist or do not exist, nor can it be thought of in terms of young or old. It is neither long nor short, big nor small, for it transcends all limits, measures, names, traces, and comparisons. It is that which you see before you. Begin to reason about it, and you at once fall into error. It is like the boundless void which cannot be fathomed or measured. The one mind alone is the Buddha, and there is no distinction between the Buddha and sentient beings, and sentient things, but that sentient beings are attached to forms and so seek externally for Buddhahood. This is using mind to grasp mind. Even they do their utmost for full eon, they will not be able to attain to it. They do not know that if they put a stop to conceptual thought and forget their anxiety, it will appear before them. It is not the less for being manifested in ordinary beings, nor is it greater for being manifested in the Buddhas. There's a dialogue that took place between teacher and the disciple recorder. The questioner says, "What is the way? What is the way? And how must it be followed?" It's a question that after 1,000 years is still asked by people. What is the way and how must it be followed? And Wang Po says, "What sort of thing do you suppose the way to be, that you should wish to follow it?" Questioner says, "What instructions have the masters everywhere given for meditation practice and the study of the truth?" And Wang Po says, "Words used to attract the dull of wit are not to be relied on." The questioner says, "If those teachings were meant for the dull-witted, I have yet to hear what truth has been taught to those of really high capacity." And Wang Po says, "If they're really people of high capacity, where could they find people to follow? If they seek from within themselves, they will find nothing tangible. How much less can they find a teaching worthy of their attention elsewhere? Do not look to what is called the Dharma or the teaching by preachers, for what sort of Dharma or teaching could that be?" The questioner says, "If that is so, should we not seek for anything at all?" And Wang Po says, "By conceding this, you would save yourself a lot of mental effort." And the questioner says, "But in this way, everything would be eliminated. There cannot just be nothing." And Wang Po, "Who called it nothing? Who was this fellow? But you wanted to seek for something." The questioner says, "Since there is no need to seek, why do you say also that not everything is eliminated?" And Wang Po says, "Not to seek is to rest tranquil." Who told you to eliminate everything? Look at the void in front of your eyes. How can you produce it or eliminate it? Void meaning no naming, no labeling, no reacting for or against. What is there constantly changing. Look at the void in front of your eyes. He says, how can you produce it or eliminate it? The questioner said, if I could reach this Dharma, this truth or this teaching, would it be like the void? Wang Po says, morning and night I have explained to you that the void is both one and the manifold. I said this as a temporary expedient, but you are building up concepts from it. And the questioner asks, do you mean that we should not form concepts as human beings normally do? Wang Po says, I have not prevented you, but concepts are related to the senses, and when reaction takes place and concepts are formed, wisdom is shut out, or reality, that what is actually, unlabeled, unnamed, unknown. It's interesting here how the disciple interprets what Wang Po says as, I shouldn't form concepts, or it's bad to form concepts. It's wrong. I shouldn't do it. Which isn't what was said. Wang Po says, I have not prevented you, meaning it's happening right now. There is a concept. Can you see it? And can you see that the concept is not the real thing? The questioner continues, then should we avoid any feeling in relation to the Dharma or to the teaching? Wang Po says, where no feeling arises, who can say that you are right? Questioner says, why do you speak as though I was mistaken in all the questions I've asked you, Reverence? Wang Po says, you're a man who doesn't understand what is said to him. What is all this about being mistaken? Can one see how quickly one jumps to conclusions? But one doesn't know one is jumping to conclusion. It happens so quickly. But attention can reveal it, and then one can question that conclusion. Clear it away and remain open. The questioner continues, up to now you have refuted everything which has been said. You have done nothing to point out the true teaching to us. Wang Po says, in the true Dharma or teaching there is no confusion. But you produce confusion by such questions. What sort of true Dharma can you go seeking for? The questioner says, since the confusion arises from my questions, what will your Reverence's answer be? And Wang Po says, observe things as they are and don't pay attention to other people. There are some people just like mad dogs barking at everything that moves. Even barking when the wind stirs among the grass and the leaves. And he goes on, regarding this Zen doctrine of ours, since it was first transmitted, it has never taught that men should seek for learning, that men should never seek for learning or form concepts. Studying the way in quotation marks is just a figure of speech. It is a method of arousing people's interest. In fact, the way is not something which can be studied. Study leads to the retention of concepts and words, and so the way is entirely misunderstood. Moreover, the way, with a capital W always, is not something especially existing. Truly, it is not located anywhere. The first step is to refrain from knowledge-based concepts. This implies that if you were to follow any method to the utmost limit, on reaching that limit, you would still be unable to locate mind, with a capital M here, meaning the mind of seeing, the unconditioned mind, not the mind of our everyday thoughts and reactions and emotions and feelings and fear and sorrow and ambition and all of that. Human consciousness. Mind is the mind of insight into that, the unconditioned insight into that. Unconditioned meaning no judgment, no comparison, no me, sitting in the middle. The way is spiritual truth, or is truth, and was originally without name or title. It was only because people ignorantly sought for it empirically that Buddhas appeared and taught them to eradicate this method of approach. Fearing that nobody would understand, they selected the name Way. You must not allow this name to lead you into forming a mental concept of a road. We can add of a road leading from here to there, there meaning some idea of the future. The future being a mental concept. Skipping several pages, the questioner says, illusion can hide from us our own mind. Illusion can hide from us our own mind. But up to now you have not taught us how to get rid of illusion. Wang Po says, the arising and the elimination of illusion are both illusory. Are both, you could say, are both ideas. Illusion is not something rooted in reality. It exists because of your dualistic thinking. If you will only cease to indulge in opposed concepts such as ordinary and enlightened, illusion will cease of itself. And then if you still want to destroy it, wherever it may be, you will find that there is not a hair's breadth left of anything on which to lay hold. This is the meaning of I will let go with both hands, for then I shall certainly discover the truth in my own mind, in my mind. Then the questioner continues, but if there's nothing on which to lay hold, how is the truth to be transmitted? Wang Po says, it is a transmission of mind with mind, both capital M's. The questioner says, well, if mind is used for transmission, why do you say that mind too does not exist? And Wang Po says, obtaining nothing whatever is called mind transmission. Obtaining nothing whatever. That's called mind transmission. You could say, well, why even call it anything? That word transmission has created so much confusion. Lines of transmission. Of what? Wang Po continues, the understanding of this mind implies no mind and no teaching. And the questioner says, if there's no mind and no teaching, what is meant by transmission? And Wang Po says, you hear people speak of mind transmission and then you talk of something to be received. So it has been said, the nature of the mind, when understood, no human speech can compass or disclose, meaning encompass or disclose. Enlightenment is not to be attained, and he that gains it does not say he knows, or has it, or has attained it, has no one to attain, and nothing to be attained. How does one hear that? How does one listen to a statement like that? There's no one to attain and nothing to be attained. Can it be listened to or heard completely without any reaction? Therefore seeing the truth of it? The questioner asks, what is meant by relative truth? Relative truth is something we don't talk about here, but it's often in Zen doctrine it's talked about living on two levels, on the level of relative truth and the level of absolute truth. And here the questioner said, what is meant by relative truth? And Wang Po says, what would you do with such a parasitical plant as that? Reality is perfect purity. Why base a discussion on false terms? To be absolutely without concepts is called the wisdom of dispassion. Every day, whether walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, and in all your speech, remain detached from everything within the sphere of phenomena. Remaining detached meaning, can one keep the me out of it? Doesn't mean shutting one's eyes and ears and being insensitive. But see how everything one sees, touches, or hears, the me wants to use or set itself in relationship with. One can watch that so clearly. And if that's seen and dispelled by the seeing, then one can really perceive something without trying to use it or avoid it. For one's own ends, that is. And I don't mean that one stops using forks and spoons, things that are necessary for our daily life and which are meant for use. But it is this seeing something and immediately wanting to have it, seeing oneself with it, and upwells the wanting. if one understands that process and the thought of something is put aside, then the wanting for it also goes. It's always attached to something in the mind or in a shop window, something one sees, that the wanting comes up. If one sees oneself with that, having it, owning it, how nice one will look with it, or how maybe important one will feel, or how powerful, or whatever. He says, whether you speak or merely blink an eye, let it be done with complete dispassion. This dispassion implies attention. Because there cannot be this dispassion without attention. Attention takes care of the me, if it's really seen. If it's only seen partially, then the me continues because it feels so good, or it's so habitual, and one doesn't want to be disturbed in one's habits. Can that be seen when it happens? This resistance to disturbance in habit. He says later, mind is like the sun forever in the void, shining spontaneously, shining without intending to shine. This is not something which you can accomplish without effort, but when you reach the point of clinging to nothing whatever, this will indeed be acting in accordance with the saying, develop a mind which rests on no thing whatever, or which abides nowhere, or clings to nothing. He says later, if you cannot understand this, though you gain profound knowledge from your studies, though you make the most painful efforts and practice the most stringent austerities, you will still fail to know your own mind. All your effort will have been misdirected. What advantage can you gain from this sort of practice? Just see that all methods of following the way are ephemeral. He at one point in a talk, he says, when we talk of the knowledge I, in quotation marks, may gain, when we talk of the knowledge I may gain, the learning I may achieve, my intuitive understanding, my deliverance from rebirth, my moral way of living, our successes make these concepts seem pleasant to us, but our failures make them appear deplorable. What is the use of all that? I advise you to remain uniformly quiescent and above all activity, meaning here mental activity. Do not deceive yourselves with conceptual thinking, and do not look anywhere for the truth, for all that is needed is to refrain from allowing concepts to arise. It is obvious that mental concepts and external perceptions are equally misleading, and that the way of the Buddhas is as dangerous to you as the way of the demons. Another point he says, when all the Buddhas manifest themselves in the world, they proclaim nothing but the one mind. Discuss it as you may, how can you even hope to approach the truth through words? Full understanding can come to you only through an inexpressible mystery. The approach to it is called stillness beyond all activity, which does not mean sitting still in a cave for the rest of one's life or in a monastery. The stillness and the stillness beyond activity is a stillness of mental activity, which is pro and con, reacting for and against, reveling in memories and projecting fears. It's a stillness of attention, of awareness, of what actually is happening in the mind. And out of that stillness can come change in the brain itself. If you wish to understand, says Wang Po, know that a sudden comprehension comes when the mind is purged of all the clutter of conceptual and discriminatory thought activity. Those who seek the truth by means of intellect and learning only get further and further away from it. Not till your thoughts cease all their branchings here and there, not till you abandon all thoughts of seeking for something, not till your mind is motionless will you be on the right road. Motionless does not mean the thinking that goes on, which is necessary in our daily life, in our jobs, in our daily work. As long as it is not divisive and constantly supporting or defending this feeling of self. The questioner says, at this very moment, all sorts of erroneous thoughts are constantly flowing through our minds. How can you speak of our having none? And the answer, error has no substance. It is entirely the product of your own thinking. If you see that mind is fundamentally without error, whenever thoughts arise, you will clearly see that they are responsible for errors. If you could prevent all conceptual movements of thought and still your thinking processes naturally, there would be no error left in you. Therefore it is said, when thoughts arise, then do all things arise. And when thoughts vanish, then do all things vanish. This is not to be interpreted as now looking for a way of thought control and thought elimination, which in itself is a thought. Thoughts calm down, slow down on their own when there's attention. Try to look at a thought sometime, face it, and you will have nothing to face. It's gone. Try to face each thought that comes up and see what happens. But usually we don't. I don't know. It's too arduous, maybe. people have reported this, and trying to look at the thought, it's nowhere is to be found. It's gone. Now the questioner asks, at this moment, while erroneous thoughts are arising in my mind, where is the Buddha? And Wangpo says, perhaps you can understand that were you but free of these delusory mental processes, where then there would then be no Buddha. He says, at this moment, while erroneous thoughts are arising in my mind, where is the Buddha? Which itself, one can see quite clearly, is a concept. And Wangpo says, perhaps you can understand that were you but free of these delusory mental processes, there would then be no Buddha. Why so? Because when you allow a movement of your mind to result in a concept of the Buddha, you're bringing into existence an objective being capable of being enlightened. If you were to refrain from conceptualizing altogether, where could the Buddha continue to exist? At another point, Wangpo says, there is no self and there is no other. There's no wrong desire, in quotation mark, no anger, in quotation mark, no hatred, quotation mark, no like, no victory, no failure. Only renounce the error of intellectual or conceptual thought processes, which include the naming and the labeling of what goes on in the body-mind. And your nature will exhibit its pristine purity or pristine purity. Unless you understand this, the whole of your great learning, your painful efforts to advance, your austerities of diet and clothing will not help you to a knowledge of your own mind. All such practices must be termed fallacious. What end is served by pursuits like those? Chi Kung says our bodies are the creations of our own minds. But how can one expect to gain such knowledge from books? If only you could comprehend the nature of your own mind, there would naturally be no room for even a grain of error to arise. Later he says, when the moment of understanding comes, do not think in terms of understanding, or not understanding, for none of these is something to be grasped. This truth of thusness, when grasped, is grasped. but he who grasps it is no more conscious of having done so than someone ignorant of it is conscious of his failure. Ah, this thusness, until now so few people have come to understand that it is written, "In this world, how few are they who drop their egos." Oh, see through it. And here finally the questioner asks, but how can we prevent ourselves from falling into the error of making distinctions between this and that, or self and other? Wang Po says, by realizing that though you eat the whole day through, no single grain has passed your lips, and that a day's journey has not taken you a single step forward. Also, by uniformly abstaining from such notions as self and other. Do not permit the events of your daily lives to bind you, but neither withdraw yourselves from them. Avoid the error of thinking in terms of past, present, and future. The past has gone, the present is a fleeting moment, and the future has not yet come. When you practice Zazen, sit in the proper position, stay perfectly tranquil, and do not permit the least movements of your minds to disturb you. This alone is what is called liberation. Ah, be diligent, be diligent. We will end here for today.